Hey, gang, welcome back. It's another episode of Final Boy Status. Hopefully, one of your favorite podcasts. I'm assuming if you listen, you like it, and I'm glad that you like it. We like making it. Who are we? Let's get into it. This is a podcast about scary movies and the stuff that happens in them. Of course, we're doing a little bit of a different format recently, but we'll talk about that more in a second. Let me start this episode by introducing myself. My name is Luke Haueter, and I am a scary movie enthusiast, and I am joined by two people that I would first and foremost call my friends if they would allow me to do that. Am I
That's
allowed?
acceptable
This time.
We'll have to make it start. We'll have to start charging the next time.
Not
I'm
in every
on-
context, but in this one, it's all right.
That's fine. If we're at the grocery store and you're like, my friends, nah, dude, I don't know you.
I'm just
Get
walling
away.
it.
Anytime we're out in public, I am not to look you in the eyes. I remember it's in our contracts.
Yes.
The contracts we
Very clear.
draw up for this show. It was very clear after the first couple of episodes who the stars were, and they really got in there with their contracts, and the company's treating them well.
That's right. Tell you what, man. Just living in the lap of luxury.
Well, let me introduce my luxurious companions upon this podcast. Let's start with, if you're watching the video of this, which I hope you do, it's good fun, but also if you're listening, thanks for doing that. But video-wise, I feel like we start with the man just over here, introduce a person who I can't call in public my friend, Mr. Adam Bone.
What's up, everybody? I got nothing else to say.
That's it. That's all you get.
That's
What do-
all
what
I'm
do-
going to be contributing to this episode. So,
Now that you've said that, I can't move on to Lanson yet. So what have you been up to, Adam? Tell us about how's life been?
well, with these episodes, I don't think we're doing it quite once a month, but more infrequent than the other episodes. It's sad to say I haven't done a whole lot since the last time we talked.
Oh,
So,
same.
I've traveled a little bit. I've been at home. I've worked. I've done these things where I'm like, wow, I watch something or I read something and I get real. I don't know if you guys do this where you get really inspired, and so I'll watch a movie and I'll be like, dude, I have an idea for like a thing. So I start writing it down, and then it's like 3 a.m, and then I wake up the next day and I look at it and I'm like, this is trash, and I throw it away and I never think of it again, and life goes back to normal. So that's kind of been my life. There hasn't been any big projects that have gone past the 2 a.m. mindset, but I'm working on it. I'm trying, so I'll take that.
I think that's just the experience of being a creative person. Because I know me, like I try to sit down and write something every day. And reliably, I get to the end and I'm like, all right, I think I did a good job, but I'll look at it again tomorrow, make sure I still like it in 24 hours. I never like it 24 hours later.
No.
It's never quite what I wanted. So I feel you on that one. But I mean, this podcast is still going, baby. You got stuff going on. You got stuff being put out into the world.
You got us.
This is a weird side note. I won't spend too much time on it, but I read a while ago a book by Stephen King that was like his memoir, and he talked about how like he would write books straight through first, and then he would go back and reread it and make edits after the entire book was done. I was like, that is, you have self-confidence if you're like, I'm not going to look back until it's totally done because it's going to be good. I'm just not that way. I don't have that Stephen King faith in myself. So maybe one day, but it's not today.
In fairness, I think there are a couple books where Stephen King shouldn't have had that faith in himself.
Well, it's hit or miss. I don't know.
Sure.
I mean, it
You
either
miss
works
all
or
the
it doesn't.
shots you don't take.
As Michael Scott famously said.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
My
Yep,
favorite
you're right.
Chicago Bull.
the best of the Chicago Bulls.
Yep.
But let us go no further into this podcast. We've already gone pretty far into it, but let us go no further than this moment right now without introducing the third musketeer,
Yeah.
our friend, our savior, the one and only.
Maybe it may be your demise. I don't know. We'll see how this goes, guys.
It's always a crapshoot. If I call Lanson at 3 a.m. and I need something, either he's rescuing me or he's condemning me. His testimony has put me in jail twice because I miscalculated.
Yeah, I mean, it was either me or him, and I like living on the outside, so it was me. I chose me every time.
You did go to prison once, but you said it wasn't for you and just never again.
It was a weird Halloween costume misunderstanding. I served 10 years because they thought I was another dude, but it happens. Simple
you dressed
things.
up as a prison cell, and they were like, "Well, this needs to be in the prison."
Well, yeah, I thought it was creative, but I guess it was a little too out of the box. I don't know.
It was a fish tank that you drew on with Sharpie, if I remember right.
Indeed.
Just imagining a prison guard looking at a dude with like a fish tank like around his body, drawn on with Sharpie, and he's like, "What are you doing? Get back in the jail. Get back in there."
It will be even funnier is they're just like, "Where'd it go?"
You stand perfectly still in the prison, and they're like, "Where is he?"
That's right. That's how I make That's how I make an escape. I just dress up like a laundry basket or something. I don't know.
Well, he is a man making his escape, making his moves in silence. Let us introduce Mr. Lanson Lappin. He's here.
Yo, hey, how's it going, everybody? Glad to be back. I've status update. I've just been living my life, watching Adam from afar. So yeah, that's all I have to report.
We were just before the stream began. We were talking about the new Batman movie. I'm just imagining it's the opening scene with Ave Maria playing and the binocular shot fixed on Adam.
I know. Yeah, just me trying to figure out a way in.
The skylight.
Yeah. I don't have a skylight. You do now.
Put it in myself.
I installed it. I was disguised as a fishbowl. You didn't know it was me.
That was the fishbowl. Oh.
I was wondering what that was all about.
I was wondering.
The fishbowl is great because you just put up like any poster against the glass, and that's what they think's inside.
I just go ahead.
Yeah, you put up a poster for like Cinema Paradiso, and they're like, "Well, it's a timeless classic in there."
Wow, geez. I just put up a picture of like Home Alone, Macaulay Culkin. That's Macaulay Culkin from the past.
How did he get here? Tell us your secrets, Macaulay.
Your secret ways, your magic.
Oh, all right. Speaking of secrets, it's time for me to come clean about something. So, of course, the audience out there knows that we've been doing some really fun and very different episodes the last little bit. We're going out of our way to do new things that we've never done before. Usually we pick a movie, we discuss it in depth, and we make a plan for how we would get out of that movie alive. Hold dramatic pause, but the dramatic pause is actually I need to burp. And there we are. So what we are doing today is we are continuing these sort of different episodes where we're having fun. We're just talking movies and hanging out. There's no agenda. There's no specific movie to talk about. But I do have to come clean about something. So ahead of time, I did tell the gentleman on the screen with me that we would be discussing a very particular topic, and that would be the only thing I had planned for this episode. That was not entirely truthful of me. In complete honesty, I have put together a little something extra for you guys. A special little Final Boy status trivia quiz. It's trivia specifically about this show. You're going to have to remember episodes that we've recorded, things you said. No, I'm kidding. It's
good.
Trivia about horror movies. Just a fun little game to get us loose, get us in the mood. Set the mood. As Robert Downey Jr. once said in his hit song of the same name. So, gentlemen, are you ready? Because I want to play a game.
Oh, hey, I love Hellraiser.
That was like
Lance is gonna do great.
Oh yeah, dude, I know what's up.
He's gonna clean the house.
I like that my version of I Want to Play a Game didn't sound like the OG guy so much as it sounded like Wilson Fisk from Daredevil, ? Mr. Murdoch, I would like to play a game.
Mr. Burbank, tear down this wall.
Matthew Burbank. But what do you gentlemen think? Are you ready to have fun and play a little game with me today?
Always.
Definitely.
Sounds like it's go time. Let's
What
get
is
into
the
this
cash
quiz.
prize?
The cash prize is 3 steaming wet kisses from me.
Ooh, how steamy? Pretty steamy or just a little steamy?
Like
0 to 10.
we're talking like Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone steamy. And I mean not La La Land, the other movie they did. Whatever that movie was that HBO Max keeps trying to tell me to watch, but I don't.
The Lake House.
Yeah, that's right. Now, I'm going to take it easy on you guys with this first question as we're getting started. This first question actually doesn't have a correct answer. It's just your opinion. Would you rather spend 2 weeks at Camp Crystal Lake or sleep in the Elm Street house for 1 week?
Here is a little. I've never seen Nightmare on Elm Street, so I'm not quite sure. I'm guessing Freddy Krueger's there, which is pretty freaky. But it is a house, and I hate camping, so there it is.
Oh, we
Freaking
went 1
hard
for
at 'em.
1. Lenson was hoping to spend a couple weeks out in the sunshine, skinny dipping with Adam Bone.
I was hoping
Not
you'd
gonna
forget your
happen.
sleeping bag, and I definitely remember mine.
The most aggressive disagreement from Adam. Not gonna happen, he says.
Nope.
I don't know. Never say never. Adam.
Camping's terrible. I'm not doing it. Sorry, Lanson.
I'm sure
Okay.
plenty of those camp counselors from Friday the 13th thought there's no way I'm gonna go skinny dipping, but by the end of the movie they did. It's almost like there was a writer telling them what to do.
It was me. Get in the lake without clothes.
We want to see them titties.
Show me them toes, kid.
Show me them toes. Oh no. The producer's a foot guy? Oh, and he laughs like Skeletor. Okay.
Yes.
All right, let's get into this. It's time for the real questions, boys, and I hope
Okay.
you're ready. Which horror film was the first ever of its genre to be nominated for a Best Picture Oscar? Couple of options here.
Nominated.
To be nominated. Couple of options here. We have Aliens. Oh, you guys figured it out quick. I didn't even
sorry.
have time to list the options. But
Oh,
the
sorry.
answer...
I'll wait next time. My bad.
No, you're good. I should have been faster. The options were Aliens, The Wicker Man, Psycho, and The Exorcist. And, of course, the answer is The Exorcist. Let's see how our boys are doing in the rankings. Looks like we have... I'm not sure who is who, but Bubble Butt appears to be in the lead. Does anybody want to take credit for that nickname?
That's definitely Adam.
That was that should have been obvious. I don't know.
I mean, he's double cheeked up all the time. So yeah.
Double cheeked up on a Thursday
hard to hide.
afternoon.
Yeah.
All right, it's time for that next question. We got the spirit of competition lit in the boys here.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
see where it goes from here. Let's go time. There's a multi-select answer. What are the rules on Randy's list for surviving a horror movie in Scream? The options are
So
don't
there's
have sex.
multiple options.
Yep. So the options here are don't have sex, don't separate from the group, never say I'll be right back, and never drink or do drugs. You have to know which of those were on the list. Oh, looks like somebody knew the correct 3 and somebody just chose all of them. I can't say I disapprove. I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, I don't remember the specifics. That was me. I was just like, all of them sound like things that you shouldn't do in a horror movie. So
The scoreboard did not update at all. Fascinating.
well, what was the one that wasn't?
Don't separate from the group. His 3 rules are never have sex, never drink or do drugs, and never say I'll be right back because you won't be.
Gotcha.
That's the thing. I'll be right back is basically don't separate from the group. So those two are kind of the same. I should have seen that. Because I do remember that happened, and the dude said that and then left. And it's been sex since I've seen Scream, but something like that happened.
Did you say
I
it's
get
been
it.
sexed since I've seen Scream?
Ooh, has it?
You saw
Wait, what?
Scream exactly 1 sex ago?
1 or 2, yeah.
Well, for
Can't expect Adam to keep track. Let's be
geez,
With
real.
a debaucherous life like mine, it could have been at 3
day
o'clock
and
today,
night just
so.
bleed together.
Yeah.
There's no understanding time or space. It's just you're
Yeah.
consumed in carnal flesh.
This guy, it's all the sins of the flesh, flying to Seattle and renting cars. That's his whole deal.
Yeah.
Or
CEO
not renting cars
lifestyle.
actually at all in reality.
He has a staunch rule against renting cars. For those wondering at home, he's against it.
I don't rent cars on a Saturday.
Only on Saturday.
It is a religious thing, but not the religion you're thinking.
Yeah.
All right, next question, gents. This is another multi-select. What is the room number for the room that Dick Halloran tells Danny to stay away from in The Shining? Options are room 113, room 666, room 217, and room 237. I tried to be fair. I tried to only pick ones that I know you guys have seen. Looks like somebody knew my little trick. In the book, it's room 217. In the movie, it's room 237. So there was technically 2 correct answers there. I pulled a sneaky on you.
Sneaky.
I got the movie one. So
I mean, that was sort of the one that I was like, they're definitely going to get it, but extra points if they can figure out the other one. Oh no, Lanson takes the lead.
If I win, I am going to subjugate the world to such horror. So, don't let me win.
I better step it up.
The human race is on the line, guys.
Lanson, I want to remind you that if you win, you gain no power over the human race. You gain 3 sloppy, wet kisses from me. That was the agreement.
But I thought when
Isn't
you
it
kissed
the
me with the
same
steamy
thing?
kisses that I got fooled.
I don't impart the power unless I want to, Lanson.
Come on, man.
You're killing me. Come on.
You're breaking my heart over here.
All right, let's go next question. Here we go again. What movie featured this quote? Listen to them, children of the night, what music they make. Our options are Dracula, Children of the Corn, The Lost Boys, and Rosemary's Baby.
I got The Hangover. Is that wrong?
It's only slightly wrong. I think Dracula's had a lot of hangovers, but the correct answer in this case was Dracula. It looks like both of you guys figured that out. Some smart lads. Some smart lads.
That's right.
Let's have a look at these scores. Oh, Lanson's still in the lead. Still time for a comeback from Senor Hueso, though. Next question. Which movie features the quote, "In space, no one can hear you scream"?
Scream.
Alien, Jason X, otherwise known as Jason Goes to Space, Species, or none of the above? None of the above. I thought I was pulling a sneaky on you guys, but you're too good for me. That was, in fact, featured on the poster for Alien, but is not spoken in the film at any point. It was the tagline, very famous tagline. Bubble butt. Bubble bath.
Bubble bath.
Bubble butt is making a comeback, has an answer streak of, let's have a look here. Oh, it's not going to tell me. Never mind. I don't know what your answer streak is.
It's 3. It tells me. Yeah. I don't think Lanson's missed one, though, have you?
I have missed one. I missed the Scream question where it was the multiple choice.
That's why nobody moved in that question, because
we
both
missed it. Yeah, I thought you said he got it, and I was like, dang it. But
I thought somebody did, but clearly I was wrong.
I just chose all of them, so
nice.
Just to be safe. Good to be safe. Next question. What do we got? How many female ghost faces has there been in the Scream series? And I'm not talking the TV show. This is just the movies, pals.
Not the TV.
Just the movies.
Come on, man.
Lanson is. Adam was saying something and it stopped.
You going somewhere with that? I was gonna say I have not seen. Oh, I gotta choose one. I have not seen any of them. except for the first one. So this is a
Oh, I
pure
didn't know
guess.
that. But you guessed
Yeah.
right. Both of you guessed correctly.
Nice.
Am I going to say what the right answer is on the podcast? No.
Well, you spoiled it for me,
Ooh.
so that's fine.
And I mean, there's no coming back now, Adam.
Yep.
Yeah, it's what's done is done.
Your life is over now.
Whoa. Lanson,
What?
he has so much left to live for. Take it easy. Hey, come on. Take it easy.
It's just because I'm jealous about him. I'm just like, I need to get him out of here.
Yeah. All his
The
carnal
real
living and
talent.
all his carnal living and renting cars, but not on Saturday. It's a lot to be jealous of.
That's the only day I can do it is on a Saturday, and I can't.
Next question, boys. Another multi-select. Which horror films did serial killer Ed Gein inspire? And our options are Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Seven, Silence of the Lambs, and Psycho.
I do not know the serial killer by name, and I was incorrect, so it shows.
It's all right. Looks like only one person answered. Or you both answered, but only did 3 answers between you. So, interesting. I don't know how to interpret this data, so I don't know why I'm trying to.
I
live on
tried.
air.
I guessed 7, and that was it. So to quantify it for
Ah,
you.
okay. So, Lanson guessed Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Silence of the Lambs, which is true, but he also inspired Psycho. He inspired
know that.
3 of the films in that question.
Wow.
So no points.
All of the ones that I didn't get.
So Lanson technically got a couple there, so it looks like he jumped up in some points. He's winning some serious bragging rights tonight.
All right, these
Go along
last
to
2
the
better
next
be
question.
good.
True or false? Stephen King wrote Dreamcatcher to pay for a surprise medical cost. Oh, you both chose false. It is actually true. You may or may not know the story. We were talking about Stephen King, and maybe his books aren't always the best earlier. Dreamcatcher is famously like his most maligned book. And the story behind it is he was hit by a car and wrote the book while he was in the hospital to pay for his hospital bills. And he was so hopped up on painkillers the whole time that he has basically disowned the book afterwards, saying it makes no sense. But then for some reason, Lawrence Kasdan tried to make a movie of it.
Sounds good. Yeah.
I mean, Timothy Oliphant's in it. It's a pretty good cast. It's like Tim Oliphant, Thomas Jane, Jason Lee,
Wow.
Morgan Freeman. It's like a super stacked cast, but like terrible movie.
A faulty foundation.
Well, for those of you who don't know, the premise of the movie is aliens invade, and these aliens are aliens that you poop out, essentially. You die when you poop them out, but you poop out the aliens and die.
I like it. You die, just so you know. It's not like you'll just eke one out and go on with your life.
Yeah,
you know?
It's not like a bad night with Taco Bell. This is like serious consequences.
This is a really bad night. With
You don't
Taco
just
Bell,
have a
is what I'm
horrific
saying.
night in an Applebee's bathroom and then you're back to work the next day. It's like you
Yeah.
give your life.
You're not cracking porcelain in a Chipotle and then walking back to the office. No. You're pooping out a full alien and then you're donezo. That's it for you. But anyway, we have one final question on this quiz. Gentlemen, feel ready?
Yes.
No.
Oh. We'll wait for you to be ready, Adam.
Okay, now I'm ready.
Excellent.
Had to poop out an alien.
Which movie started as a spec script for Alien 3? Species, Tremors, Pitch Black, or The Chronicles of Riddick? You boys got it. It's Pitch Black. I thought I'd throw you with listing The Chronicles of Riddick as an option, but alas. Specifically, the first movie in the Riddick franchise, Pitch Black, was the one that started as a script for Alien 3. Let's have a look. In third place, what? Oh, there we
Michael
go.
Myers.
Second place we have. In third place we have Michael Myers. Second place we have Adam Bone, and in first place, Lanson takes the cake on this quiz. So, I wanted to do an episode specifically about rebooting horror. So there's been a buttload of remakes and reboots in recent years, especially. I mean, 2021 had Halloween Kills, Candyman, and Ghostbusters Afterlife. 2022 has already had a Scream requel, which I don't think it's fair to call that one a reboot sequel type situation. It was very clearly a sequel, but there's a Jurassic World movie coming out this summer. A Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie just came out on Netflix, I think. Haven't seen it yet, but I hear that happened. I mean, Hollywood loves recycling and rebooting old movies, and I feel like horror is a genre where it happens the most. But I wanted to talk a little bit about rebooting something or adapting something, bringing something back that we've seen before. Just really dive into a discussion on that. Did you guys have any points you wanted to start with, or should I have my little discussion topics lined out? Should I just launch into it?
Well, I'll just say that this is a good discussion, I think, for the world today, because it is rampant, like it or not. Most movies coming out, I would say, are reboots or sequels or reimaginations. And so this will be a fun discussion. I actually, in preparation, was looking at a Wikipedia list of rebooted movies, which is a very long list, and I realized there hasn't been a lot of reboots that I've seen the original and the reboot. It's usually like one or the other. So we'll see how much I can actually give to this conversation. If anything, we can just let Lanson be our crutch, because he's my crutch in life. So,
Oh, thanks, buddy.
He rents the car when you can't.
Anonymously. Even though I'm right in front of them in a trench coat.
The man behind me needs a rented car, and I'll be paying for that.
Who are you, sir?
In a trench coat, walking as if you're three kids stacked on top of each other.
Trying to get a bank loan to rebuild my treehouse. Yep.
Paying through a dummy corporation.
Yes.
Because little do you know, Lanson Lappin's got them smarts. He's got shell companies all over the place. And I mean Shell gas stations. He owns several in the tri-state area.
I've also sold a lot of seashells by the seashore.
Yes. And you also did that with your girlfriend at the time, Sheila, I believe.
Bloody right.
Used to always tell me, Sheila shells seashells by the seashore with me.
With me. Conmigo.
You were very clear. One time you poked me in the chest and you said, "Not you, me.
Keep this in your head, Haueter. It's me, not you, me."
I understand your frustration, though. In fairness, I was sleeping with her at the time.
You two? Oh my gosh. The both of you just take all the women from me.
I mean, I don't know. There's a comfort, I think. There's a comfort in knowing.
For you. Speak for yourself.
There's a comfort in knowing I can always pull women from Lanson.
You're like,
there's always a pool to fish from.
That's right. I don't need a date. He's dating them. I'll just come in and just, yoink one right out of the pond.
You'll go fishing and I'll get the catch of the day.
Like a real Yogi Bear episode. That's how that works, right?
That is absolutely how it works. I'm a cruel person, so I'm just gonna do a little something here real quick to really drive home my point if I can. Nope, I can't. Forget it. I was gonna share my screen and it would just be the meme, "No bitches." But my computer wouldn't let me do it, so
at least your computer had mercy.
Somebody had to, I guess. But no, I'm happy to get into it. If you gentlemen feel like you want to get into my discussion questions, or do you have anything you want to say beforehand? Adam kind of said something already. What are you feeling like? How are you feeling, Lance? And you feel confident going into this particular? You feel confident going into this game? You feel like you know the plan? You can execute. You can. Yes. You can excel.
I can excel. I can Word. I can PowerPoint. I can do everything, Coach.
PowerPoint does sound like something you would hear in like a motivational business speaker thing of like, you got to know how to enter a room in PowerPoint.
What
That's
I
part of-
say, you have potential, and you, oh boy,
Oh no, I did it again.
not again.
But let's get straight into it. So I basically had questions I was going to ask you guys, and we were going to see where the conversation went. So first of all, I'm not going to be one of those guys that hates on reboots. I think there have been some really fantastic ones, and it's really fun sometimes to revisit something that's been dormant for a while. So I want to start us off on a positive note and say, what are some reboots that you think really worked, that you think they're fantastic, they revitalized the series, and you were just excited to go back to that world after the reboot came out?
If you don't mind me fielding this question, firstly,
Ben fielding this question?
Please.
I'm gonna field it. I'm just gonna field it so good. I would say for me, John Carpenter's The Thing is one that stands out in the forefront of my mind as a maybe not a reboot, but like a reimagining of a classic movie, which I think, which actually Luke showed me. So that was it's got fond memories because number one, it's a movie I like, and it's also associated to like one of my dear friends. So it's like got a special place in my heart. So that for me is one when you talk about like reimaginings or reboots or remakes that stands out to me.
Yeah, I love that movie. Anybody in my personal life knows that I can't shut up about that movie. Yeah, not a lot of people know that that is in fact a remake of a 1920s Howard Hawks film. And yeah, John Carpenter loved that movie, and he went back to the novel that inspired it, and he did his own adaptation of that novel. It's a very different movie, but yeah, I would have to agree with you 100%. That's I think a phenomenal example of going back to something and adapting it in a new way and rebooting it for a new era. And I mean, John Carpenter did it masterfully. Like like everybody talks about it. I've heard Mike Flanagan describe it as the perfect film, which made me feel very validated. What about you, Adam? Like some reboots, sequels, whatever, requels, sequels, whatever you want to call them. What are some things that breathed new life into a franchise for you? Horror or not? Let's just open it up.
Yeah. I think I'm going to kind of give two different examples. Both these examples, I haven't seen the originals. I know enough about them to be able to make an argument, but do understand it's coming from kind of a place where I don't know. But I'm going to say the first one is something we've talked about on this podcast, a movie that we've done on the podcast, which we have done The Thing too. So, but is the newest Invisible Man movie. I think that really hit all the marks that I think a reboot needs to exist. I am one of those guys, Luke, where I'm like, if there's like a movie poster for a remake, I'm like, I hate it. Like I have such a bad attitude about remakes just because like, I don't know. It's so rampant nowadays and most of them aren't good. It's just tough. But I think The Invisible Man proved itself to be necessary. It was like, I am here. There's good context. There's good reason for me to be here. I'm not here just because the source material is beloved and anybody will watch anything like a lot of franchises do. It was really applicable to the new world. It had a really good message, had a really interesting look at the character. So that was the first one I'd say. I think that's one of my kind of standards as far as the movie made itself worth existing. The second example is a franchise, and that is the Planet of the Apes. I think the new trilogy, the Planet of the Apes, is kick-ass. The first one was just awesome. Like this story that was all about where the main character was an ape and that could, I mean, kind of barely spoke in the first one, but I don't know, by the end of the series, you love this character. There's so much depth to it, and he's like an ape that can barely speak. But it's just a franchise that I think, again, really proves that because of where special effects have come, and where people can be interested in character that are very nonverbal. It added itself to the world in a way that really proved that it needed to exist. So those are a couple examples for me.
So I'm gonna like hook on to something that you brought up specifically, if you don't mind.
Please hook on to me.
So first of all, I'm actually going to say something. So when we did our episode on The Invisible Man, I wasn't like a hater necessarily, but I said during the episode that I was really excited about it and I felt disappointed by it. And I want to come back, and now that I have the chance to on the record say this, I have since had a lot of time to sit with the movie and think about it, and I've even gone back and rewatched it a couple times. I have a radically different opinion of it now. I don't know, just in an off mood the day that I watched it. I don't remember ratings. Ratings might be going away anyway, so for me to go back and give the movie a new rating would be pointless. But anybody who like took to heart what I said about that movie and maybe you decided not to see it, I retract my disappointment. The more time I've had to sit with it and revisit it, the more I'm like, this is really incredibly well done. And my complaints were probably based more on me being in a bad mood than anything else. So I'll get that point out of the way. I want to come clean. I honestly, like, when we're in the thick of it talking about these movies, sometimes I get so analytical, and then I have time to sit with them for a while, and like my whole thought process changes. Like, I think it's healthy for opinions to grow and shift and evolve, and my opinion on that one definitely did. So I'll say that, and then I'm going to latch on to something you said specifically, which is for you, a reboot, something that brings a property back into the mainstream, brings it back to people's attention. You said something that makes it enjoyable for you is you want to feel like it has a reason to exist. I'm going to latch on to that sort of thing in particular and just ask as a follow-up question, what are things that make a reboot enjoyable in your opinion? So for Adam, I really agree with Adam. I feel like when a movie has a reason to exist, that's something that can really win me over. This has been sort of I actually had a conversation with Adam's brother Josh about this, who's been on the podcast. Shout out to Josh. But he and I had a conversation about Ghostbusters Afterlife, and he and I had very different opinions on it. Where Josh was like, "This is a soulless cash grab. They're just reviving the series. It's very Force Awakens." And I was kind of going into it with the perspective of what the director and writer had said about it, where it was like he was trying to reckon with his father's legacy, and he decided he wanted to make a film about legacy, and he wanted it to be a Ghostbusters film. And when I watched it, it felt not that it was a perfect film, but I actually really enjoyed it, and I was kind of excited by the fact that it existed because it felt like it had that motive, it had that purpose, that the director was asking a question with this movie and trying to figure it out. He was wrestling with his own relationship with his father and what it means to have a legacy. And so I feel like that made that movie a lot better for me. I feel like I'm not going to invalidate Josh's opinion on it, but because I was coming in with the perspective of this movie is more about the director's relationship with his famous director father, like I feel like I had a very unique perspective on it. So I'll turn that question to you, gentlemen. What are things that you think makes a reboot enjoyable in your opinion?
I think for me, when you make a reboot or a sequel or whatever kind of follow-up movie, I think it's important to respect what came before, but not just ride on the coattails of what it was before. You know, trying to make somewhat of a new story or an addition to a story that's already been told. You know, so I think for me, it's not so much that you just get rid of whatever was good about the first one, but you respect that, but you also try to add on to it or to make it relevant for the time that it's being made, or the period that it's being made in?
This is a good question, and I feel like I have a lot of things going around my head. It's hard to pinpoint because I'm thinking of examples of ones I've liked and disliked, and I'm trying to find like reasons. I think at the end of the day, I like some and I dislike some, and I feel like the big one is what I said before, where it shows that it needs or it gives itself a reason to exist. But I think if you break it down to what that reason is, it can be a lot of different things for me. I think at first I was like, well, if they take a different direction for characters and story and stuff like that. And I don't think that's always necessarily true. I think with some of the reboots that are pretty similar but have just a different aesthetic, different colors, a lot of like movie musicals do this where it's like, yeah, it's the same words or the same music, but it's now reimagined. It's still fun to see that, and I don't think those are pointless per se. So I don't know. I think taking it in a different direction to break it down and to say, okay, this is my thing now. What am I going to do? I think the most polarizing sequel, perhaps of all time, is the second of the rebooted Star Wars things. I forget the subtitle. The Last Jedi, which I think is polarizing, and I don't want to open a whole can of worms. Plus, everything's kind of been said already that needs to be said. But I think that's a good example of a director saying, okay, I have this source material. I'm going to kind of do my own thing with it, which is something I think is necessary. And I do enjoy seeing someone just taking their vision. I think sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, just like any movie. But I enjoy when they do something new, when they say like, look, this arc of a character is a new arc, is a different arc. This aesthetic is different. The music is different. I don't know. I just like seeing something different. So I'm not like, wow, it's like a continuation of the same movie, but the same movie was better. So I don't know. So something new to liven it up, which is pretty general. But again, it's at the end of the day, I just like some movies and dislike them. And sometimes it's hard to pinpoint exactly why.
Yeah, exactly. I think that sums up a lot of things perfectly. And when we're talking about reboots, like there's a lot of different categories, right? Like there is that thing of you're making a sequel to the original franchise, but it's a whole new story, it's a whole new this. And sometimes you're talking about a reboot where you're literally remaking something that already existed. And I feel like, again, it's like riding that line where it's like, if you're going to go back and remake something from the beginning, if you love this movie and you want a reboot of it in the modern era where you tell where you're remaking that movie, you probably want to tweak the storyline, make it new, but you definitely want to find something new to say, right? Like you don't want to shot for shot remakes are a phenomenon I'm not very familiar with. I'm sure we could get into it because they do exist out there, especially in the realm of horror, and we could probably do some episodes on it. And I think that's a fascinating discussion on its own. But I think for me, what I will say is, like I said, it kind of needs a reason to exist. And I want it to be, I do want it to take risks, and I don't want it to feel like it's too tied down to something. I will say definitely there are some projects that I feel like when we talk about a good reason to reboot something and start a new cycle in a franchise, Star Wars is such an interesting example, right? Because like they make a few movies, they stop for a little while. They make a few movies, they stop for a little while. Now that they're owned by Disney, they'll probably be consistently churning stuff out for forever. But I do think that's sort of interesting with those movies. I had this sense of like, you know, the prequel trilogy was maligned in its day. The sequel trilogy is now maligned. But I actually am kind of psyched that they exist just because I think the most significant legacy of Star Wars is the special effects. You know, George Lucas started ILM making that first Star Wars movie, making that first trilogy, and they are now the name in Hollywood special effects. And so there's a part of me that's like, I would love every like 10, 15, 20 years or something, we go back to Star Wars and we see where the special effects are at now. Like, because it was groundbreaking when that first trilogy came out. The prequel trilogy was groundbreaking in their use of special effects in their own way. And now this sequel trilogy has been groundbreaking and the special effects are incredible. I mean, The Last Jedi, you can look at a lot of storyline stuff and be unhappy with that. But I think that's some of the finest special effects you could ever see in a movie being employed in that particular movie. And so just like it doesn't take much. And Star Wars, like at this point, I think people just need to acknowledge Star Wars is being made for kids. Like, as long as kids are liking it and it looks amazing, I feel like that's kind of reason enough for that to exist. I would love, like I said, for them to take a break, but then every 15 years or so, they come back with a new trilogy and they say, look what we can do now. I mean, John Carpenter's The Thing was kind of that in its own way too, where it was like, this is the 80s. We can make disgusting body horror effects. Let's show you what we can get up to. So I think that there's just fun stuff all over. There's a lot of, I think, reasons to get in and reboot something. And sometimes the reason is just simply like, I think the Scream series is another interesting example, right? Because you had 3 that were done bang, bang, bang in the 90s, churned out the original trilogy. And then 10 years later, Wes Craven was like, we're going to do a 4th. And then 10 years after that, somebody decided to do a 5th. And those movies exist in this space where they're aware of horror movies and they are an active part of the conversation about horror movies. So if they make a Scream movie every 10 years for the rest of forever, honestly, I feel like those movies kind of have reasons to exist. It's like, as long as horror, the genre, exists, I feel like Scream will pop up every once in a while and provide some commentary on where horror is at right now. You know, it was funny because when I was planning this episode, I hadn't seen Scream 5, but I have since gone to see it. And there's a lot of discussion in that movie about reboots, requels, you know, like, and the idea of like prestige horror, you know, movies like The Babadook or Hereditary, which we've discussed, which sort of set themselves apart by having this sort of grandiose thematic and thematic statements and symbolism to them, as opposed to like the slashers from the 90s and stuff. And so it's interesting that while I was thinking about like, what is the state of horror with rebooting, and, you know, they turned Halloween into a more like prestige horror with symbolism and stuff like that. And I haven't seen the new Candyman, but I hear that was kind of similar. And then you go see Scream and they're saying the same thing. And it's like, oh, right, that's why these movies exist. Every once in a while, a Scream movie has to pop up and say, here's the deal with horror. It's like it's 100% like why that first movie exists. And every time they pop up with like a Scream 4 or a Scream 5, it feels so true to that original movie to be like, here's what's going on now, you know? So I've probably talked long enough. Let's get another question out there, floated out there. Let's we talked about positives, we talked about things we like. Let's be assholes for a minute. I'm going to toss out 2 questions at once here. What are things that could make you dislike a reboot? And what are some examples of reboots that don't work for you, that you think failed? Failed artistically, I would say. They could have been a massive box office success, but for whatever reason, they didn't scratch your itch.
What was the first question? Sorry.
What are things that can make you dislike a reboot?
Okay.
We talked about things that make a reboot enjoyable in your opinion. In your opinion, what are some things that can kind of turn you off from a reboot?
I feel like for me, sometimes when you watch a movie, you can kind of have the intent of why they made the movie kind of ooze through, where it's like you understand, oh, you don't really care about this movie. You just cared about making money off of this movie because it's been X amount of years and you want to keep the intellectual property, keep churning out money. So I think for me, it really is the intention of the film. Like, even if it's a crappy movie, like if you just made it because it's something you're passionate about, I can respect that. But if it's just like, I don't know, the kids, we gotta squeeze some more money out of them, and let's just go back to the thing that they liked a couple of years ago and not really care about what we make. I feel like that sort of intention behind filmmaking is something that can rub me the wrong way with a reboot or a sequel. And then to kind of answer your second question of a remake that didn't work for me, I was not a big fan. I recently have gone back and watched some of the remakes that Universal has made from their old monster movies. And one of the most recent ones that I watched was The Wolfman with Benicio del Toro. And I was like, this is
boy.
not, it just felt like, it felt pretty hollow. It felt like it didn't really
Yeah.
have a heart or a soul. And it was just kind of like, well, he's a wolf man and it just tears people apart. And that's all that's cool, I don't feel like it really got to the heart of the Wolfman, which is, it's a tragedy at the end of the day. It's like, a person is affected by this, instead of it being just this cool rip him to shreds thing, it's really, it's a disease. It's something that is, should be almost like really unfortunate that it happens to a person rather than just like a whole lot of glorified gore on screen. So that would be my answer for those two questions.
If you'll let things get really intellectual for a moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, people respond to a work because they find themes and they find imagery that resonates with them. And then when they adapt it, they're most likely just being true to the things that resonated with them from that, right? So it's so weird to have a discussion about this because essentially what we're saying at the end of the day is the themes and the ideas that I got out of this work are different than what that person got out of it. And so on a fundamental level, I'm right, they're wrong, which is obviously not true in the court of opinions. But I feel like, well, let's be assholes a little bit. And we'll say like, I mean, let's call it a really obvious like adaptation that is pretty maligned. It's either you are on board with this movie, you're a big fan, or you hate it with all of your heart. I, for the life of me, have no idea how Zack Snyder's Watchmen came out of the graphic novel Watchmen. Like, when I read that graphic novel, that entire graphic novel is about how superheroes suck, they're silly, and they're terrible people. And somehow Zack Snyder read that and was like, this is about how superheroes are the coolest. Like, so just on a fundamental level, thematically, he and I got two very different things out of it. Thematically, he got out of it that the world didn't deserve superheroes. And fundamentally, I got out of it that like superheroes in a way are like a lie. So like fundamentally, we interpreted it different ways. So there's no way we could find middle ground on that, which is so odd and interesting that we could read the same thing and have completely different ideas of what it is. So I feel at the end of the day, we do have to acknowledge that. This is like my opinion versus your opinion, what I got out of the themes, the imagery, and the symbolism, and what you got out of the themes, imagery, and symbolism. So thank you for letting me get very, very intellectual for a moment. But I just want to call out, like, it's such a weird, I really like talking about this. But at the end of the day, I also have to be sure that I say, this is just opinion. Like, but it is a scientific fact that the Benicio del Toro Wolfman sucks. So that's okay.
Scientists have concluded.
They came up with an algorithm for that one.
If you see right here on the piece of paper, it says it sucks.
as you can see, they've been studying this at Harvard for the past 25. The movie isn't 25 years old. Guys, who did this study?
Did
They've
they
been working
write
on
the
this for a
movie?
while.
Did they give ideas to Universal? It's a monster of their own creation.
And it's so interesting too because like you said, sometimes it's a cash grab, but if you find the right person, it can be a turnaround because the Invisible Man was like another cash grab thing where Universal was like, what do we have the rights to? Oh, we have the rights to the monsters. We got to get a monster verse going. They hired people to write a Mummy movie and then a Jekyll and Hyde movie, and they just happened to hire Lee Winnell to work on an Invisible Man movie. But obviously, the state of the monster verse really shifted while he was working on his movie, and it got to a point where they said, never mind, you can kind of do whatever you want with it, but we still want you to do it. And that put him in a position to make a tremendous movie. So it's kind of that funny thing of like, sometimes, and like you said, the intention can leak through, where even the conversation I had with Josh, he had no idea that at the core of that movie, like, it was about struggling with your parents and their legacy. And I think after our conversation, he was actually willing to revisit Ghostbusters Afterlife and kind of see, like, all right, now that I have that, is this movie different for me? So sometimes, like, the intention, I think, can really make a difference for you. Adam, did you want to weigh in on like things that can ruin a reboot for you, reboots that you didn't like, or would you like some new questions thrown in the mix to think about?
No, I've been stewing on this question. I think I'm gonna use an example that's pretty weird, and it's a genre we really haven't touched a whole lot. But I just watched a rom-com that it wasn't a reboot. It was its own thing, but I watched it and I was like, that was a reboot of Ghost. The movie is called Just Like Heaven. I think it's what it's called. It's got Reese Witherspoon and
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Mark Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo. If you've seen it and like it, I apologize, but I hated it. I thought it was basically Ghost, but they're like they changed some things with it. And I think the reason it really did work for me is because having recently seen Ghost and then watching this a little bit after, it basically kind of took the shell of Ghost and was like, okay, a dead, invisible person is speaking to this other person. There's communication. They got to figure out things about their death. And then they took out the heart and the kind of everything underneath that made Ghost kind of a rewatchable movie, like the main relationship, how it was deep and pretty nuanced, and the humor of Whoopi Goldberg and the kind of craziness of the situation, and kind of turned it into just like, yeah, we're gonna change a couple things, and we're just gonna write the script of a pretty standard rom-com. So I think this is kind of a greater conversation to say. I think with reboots, they kind of go like, well, this speaks for itself. They have a character or they have a storyline or they have just something that they're like, this was from the original. We're going to give it to you again and say, hey, you liked this in the original. This speaks for itself. We don't have to do anything more than this, at least in this instance, which is not true. Even if it's the same storyline, like, again, pretty similar storyline to the movie Ghost, yet it missed most of the reasons why Ghost was an enjoyable. I mean, Ghost isn't a perfect movie, but it wasn't at least a pretty enjoyable, a lot deeper, somewhat dated movie. Whereas
I
Just
think
Like
we all
Heaven was
know
just
the only perfect movie Patrick Swayze made was Roadhouse.
Roadhouse.
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Adam. I just had to get
You're
my
good.
joke in.
So anytime there's moments in like Marvel movies and Disney movies do this a lot where they're like, hey, this character, this speaks for itself. But it's like, no, give us like something. Give us like a new direction, a new angle. I'm not saying you can't rehash characters or plots, but give it depth that holds it up, because it held it up in the original too. The original wasn't good because of this character, because of this thing. It was what was underneath it. It was the I think the nuance is kind of like you were saying, Luke, where there's these little things that I think are opinions in some cases, but there's layers underneath what's going on that's written and woven into the filmmaking and the script that I'm not saying people don't pick up on it, or like I'm just so intellectual I can see it, but they can't. I don't think that's what's going on. I think they just underestimate how important that is, not just kind of the facade of the movie, I guess.
Yeah, I think you're saying something really interesting here, which is like something that we have weirdly been circling around, but we haven't said specifically. We've been talking about like reboots where they go in deep and they look at the original thing and they go, what do I get out of this? And I'm going to make a movie out of that. You're talking about like a very superficial thing of, oh, a romance movie involving a ghost. People are going to like that. Go. And I do think that that's something very significant that I personally had missed when I was thinking about this, which is just this idea of like, I mean, you know, like no disrespect to any movie studio, you go where the money is, obviously, but clearly Marvel hit something big with superheroes, and there are a lot of studios now that are like trying to play catch up to that, right? And they're like, frick, we got to have a superhero thing. And some of them don't give it any more thought than that, right? Like some of them go, this is a character that exists in a comic book. People will love it. And then they make the movie and people do not love it. But then there are people like, well, I mean, I'll bring it up because the trailer for season 3 just came out recently for that Amazon show, The Boys. They clearly were like, hey, superheroes are a big topic of discussion right now. What's a version of superheroes that nobody is making? Let's do the thing that nobody will see coming. Moon Knight is coming out later this month, and I'm super excited about it because I feel like that's a realm where Marvel looked around and they were like, you know what? Disney Plus is giving us room to do some weird stuff. Who is a character that would be kind of weird in a movie, but we could really have some fun with in a TV show? And they went Moon Knight. And I thought, I mean, I don't want to speak for it before it's out, but there have been some runs in the Moon Knight comic books that I think are phenomenal. And I love how weird they are. And I love that there's nothing else quite like them. And I hope that we see some of that with the upcoming show. So I feel like you're hitting on something very particular, which is like, there is a difference between diving deep and going, what is something that strikes a chord with me in this project versus, oh, well, people like that, you know, like diving in and literally going and trying to figure out the DNA of something versus looking at like the skeleton of something and going, that's good enough. You know, like it would be like if I can't think of a good example, but it's like if somebody offered to like clone something for you, they're like, we can make like another you, and then they bring in a skeleton and we're like, we nailed it, right?
We got it.
So I think you bring up something like really, really relevant to this conversation, which is like, how deep are they going into it? Like, are they trying to like break the code? Are they trying to figure out something to say at all? Or are they just going, you know what would really work for us? A werewolf. Wait. Guys, listen to this. There's a werewolf. And he's in London. But he's American.
Oh, sheesh. Is he a
I
teen?
say he wishes. But yeah, I think that's a beautiful place to kind of start wrapping up. So now instead of diving in deep and like getting intellectual about stuff, here are just some questions that are just for funsies. What are some existing IP, movies, franchises, or series that you personally would love to see a reboot of? And is there any existing IP out there that you sincerely hope will never be revisited, that they bury it in the ground and we never talk about it again?
Good question. Should have come prepared for this one because it's kind of a big one, but
I sent you
Yeah.
the questions ahead of time, but that's okay.
I know.
so it's on me 100% is what I'm saying. It would have been good for me to go and look at that.
I'll chime in with something. We've kind of
Start us off.
Yeah, go ahead. Do it.
say it,
Say it.
say it. So, talking about things that haven't been rebooted, but I would really love to see, would love to see brought back to the silver screen. This is probably going to surprise you guys because this is a movie I love very dearly, and we've already discussed it. But I would genuinely be interested in returning to The Thing, mostly just because, in terms of what we can do special effects wise now in 2022 versus what they did in when did that movie come out? Like 84, 83?
Yeah.
Like, obviously they did a prequel in 2011 that fell apart pretty significantly. And my ideal like revisit of that actually probably wouldn't involve any of the characters from the original. I don't think it would touch on the events of the original at all if I could help it. But pretty clearly at the end of the original, they leave an open door by saying it survived. Like, it's a really nihilistic and terrible ending that at the end there's two men sitting there. One of them is the alien, one of them isn't, which means that the alien kind of won. So for me, it's like there is fresh ground to be covered there. And I'm really interested in what happens years afterwards. Like, let's set the movie now, 2022, or we can make it a period piece. It could be the late 80s, early 90s. That could be fun. But like, give it some distance from that original movie. Don't try to jump right in and connect it. I think don't cash in on existing characters. Just take some of the themes, take some of the symbolism, and run with it. And show me some dope ass special effects from 2022. So, probably surprising to you guys that I actually advocate for seeing something more from that realm, but I would be interested in seeing that messed around with. Of course, if there are movies that shouldn't be rebooted, my opinion on those is mostly actually in the realm of comedy. When I was thinking about this before the episode started, there are some movies that I think should never be revisited. They shouldn't try to do a reboot of. The one movie that I kept thinking about over and over again was Tommy Boy. Any movie where the OG had, the legend that is Chris Farley, if he was in the OG movie, let it rest, man. Like, we're lucky we have what we have. Don't go back to it. And, especially, like, don't reboot. Like, if I got called by somebody tomorrow and they said, we're rebooting Tommy Boy, we want you to be the Chris Farley part, I'd say yes because I need money, but also in my gut, horrible decision. Like, that's so, like, in terms of stuff that I'm like shouldn't be touched, the movie that I thought of almost immediately and couldn't stop thinking about was Tommy Boy specifically. So those are things that came to mind for me. I also think I've been sitting on this for like a month at this point. But when I was thinking of like series or different things that could be rebooted, and I think it would be really interesting. There was a show back in the day, I think it was on ABC where it aired originally, but it was a show called Pushing Daisies. It was about a guy who investigated crimes because when he touched people, he could bring them back to life, like for a brief period of time. There's a whole bunch of rules associated with it that I won't get into in depth. And the show was very colorful. It was very cheery. It had a very specific tone. But the guy who made that show went on to create Hannibal, which was an adaptation of the novels, the Hannibal Lecter novels. And he showed that he has a penchant for being really, really dark and really messed up. And it kind of made me be like, man, like a Pushing Daisies reboot in the era of streaming, when you can go all in on gore, you can do some really nasty stuff. You could make it look just gorgeous. You know, you could look like a film student's wet dream and also be super disgusting. Like, it would be an entirely different thing, and I would be pretty open to it. So I was thinking about that a bit as well. I mentioned to Adam that there's a movie, Ready or Not. It only came out in 2019, so it has to be a good long wait. But Adam and I have talked specifically about if they were to do a remake of that, an idea I had that I think would be really interesting. I don't want to get in like too in depth with it because it's a very involved pitch, but Adam and I had a discussion about it, and he was very nice to nod his head and be like, yeah, that sounds interesting, Luke. I don't know if he meant it or not, but it's nice to be validated. So those are all like stuff that came to mind for me. You gentlemen have had a couple minutes to kind of sit and think. Do you have anything come to mind?
Yeah, I'll start. This is a weird choice.
Already excited.
But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, you know what? Let's see it. I would love to see a reboot of Donnie Darko. I think there is a ton of lore and weirdness. And it was such a weird, ambiguous movie that had so many things, like the stuff with fate, the stuff with death, the stuff with the countdown until something horrible happens. I think these are things that could really be explored. I'm guessing the reason it hasn't been done yet is because it's such a weird movie, and I wouldn't know what to do with it. I feel like directors are like, how would you, you know? But if there was a director who was ballsy enough to pick up the source material and roll the dice and figure out something, I'd be there. I think it'd be interesting. If they could pull it off, I think it'd be really good to just kind of explore that world a little bit more, explore that kind of time loop thing, which a time loop has been done before, but I don't know. I feel like that lore specifically is very interesting. So I'd love to see a reboot of that in modern time again. It wasn't that long ago, but the problem is, and I think of all my like great movies that I like, and then I'm like, there was a reboot of it. Well, nope, there was a reboot of it. So it's like it's hard to find one that there hasn't been. So that was what I can't think of one I don't want to reboot for. So maybe if Lance is done talking, I'll chime in, but I can't think of any right now.
I'm gonna ask you a question. You said that you didn't have a director come to mind that you thought would be a great choice to take on a Donnie Darko reboot. But I'll ask you this question. I'll take it over to Lance and give you a chance to think about it. But who do you think should take over the role of Donnie Darko from Jake Gyllenhaal in the modern day? So I'll let you marinate on that for a second. We'll switch on over to Lançon.
Lançon.
Lançon?
Oui, oui.
Lançon là-bas?
Oui, mon ami. Si, senor. Yeah, so I think for me, I don't know that I have a specific movie, but maybe more of like a subgenre sort of for both answers, of one that would be cool to see remade and one just to leave alone. I think I would really like to see, especially now and especially, you know, as film has progressed, I'd love to see another zombie movie. You know, whether that's like, I don't know, like a zombie western, whether it's or another romantic comedy like Warm Bodies. You know, there's a lot of, I feel like that's kind of a movie monster genre that's kind of been neglected for a long time. So I feel like there's a lot of potential there, and I would be interested to see what you could do with that. So that's what I would say for something to be rebooted or reimagined or added on to. As far as a genre that we kind of need to like, I feel like we need to pump the brakes on. like mob movies and organized crime. I feel like that specific trying to do the whole Godfather Scorsese thing. I think we need to like just let that simmer for a couple of years, and then maybe like go back to it, because I feel like it's just getting oversaturated and almost like to the point where some of it's becoming parody of those movies that are from the past. So yeah, that's what I would say. I think we need to leave Middle Earth alone too. Like, I'm sorry for all you Tolkienites out there, but like, you got to leave the casino while you got somewhat of a hot hand. I'm not gonna. I didn't love the Hobbit movies, but you know, feel like it can get a lot worse really quick. So, anyway, those are my thoughts on those two questions.
Just hearing the word zombie western, I got visibly excited.
Yeah,
I had never thought of that combination before, but it's
Yeah.
phenomenal. I like that a lot. I feel like I had a question for you, Lanson, and I feel like it's slipping away from me a little. Nuts.
Well, I got my answer. I could jump in really quick while you're thinking about that.
Hey,
I have a director and I have an actor for Donnie Darko.
Snap.
I'll start with the director. I would want Bong Joon-ho to take it on. I think the touch of Korean horror would just be fantastic. It honestly feels like a match made in heaven. I think God gave that to me. So I'm projecting that into the world, and hopefully Hollywood will feel that vibe. And I don't know kid actors, so I chose a girl actor because I'm all for, multiple representation. As long as you have more to the movie than just that, which is a whole nother conversation. But I'm all for it. I think the little girl, I forgot the character's name. She's in Haunting of Hill House. She was also one of the first victims of that cult people in Dr. Sleep. She's a really cute little girl that I think would having kind of an existential crisis would be really fun.
You went super young on that.
Well, I'm guessing she's older now because both those movies came out a few years ago, but who knows? I can't keep track of kid actors, so maybe she's still really young. I don't know.
She's 3 years old.
She's de-aged.
I feel like she was like 8 in those movies. Now she's maybe like 12. I don't know. Maybe
she got
still
digitally
young,
de-aged.
Yeah.
I mean, you're thinking ahead though. You're plotting your moves, which I appreciate. You're
I'm making this happen. Yeah.
You're like, I'm saying this on a podcast. I'm going to give it some time to make the rounds on the internet. Wait for the director to hear about it. But I don't want to mispronounce his name. But wait for him to hear about it and get to work, and then little by little, we'll crack into it. I think it could be onto something. I mean, I'm just surprised you didn't cast Finn Wolfhard, but that's a personal thing. It's. The guy's a master, man. The guy's like, we just gotta acknowledge, the guy's a master.
What if?
Good job, Finn.
We cast Tom Holland as Donnie Brasco.
That pitch is accidentally the funniest. Not accidentally. You were purposely making it very funny, but also I would 100% go to see that movie. The Sony reboot of Donnie Brasco, where they were like, we want him when he's young. Let's get Tom Holland.
Yeah.
He's been making some money for us lately with the Nathan Drakes and the Spidermans.
That's Spidermans.
Spidermans. Nobody asked this of me, but I'm going to quickly present something that I think is interesting. Thinking about rebooting John Carpenter's The Thing, like I said, picking up the story away from the events and everything. Adam talking about like what directors could do this, what actors would be interesting. I had a pitch come to me almost immediately, which is I want to see a Thing movie separate. It's a reboot. It's years later. We know that there's still one out there frozen in the ice somewhere. We pick up years later. Our lead actor is Raul Coley, and our director is Mike Flanagan.
Who's Raul Coley?
He was in Haunting of Bly Manor and Midnight Mass. He's the sheriff in Midnight Mass and the cook in Bly Manor. And I'm going to
Yeah.
double down on Raul Coley as like our sort of the new Kurt Russell. But if Mike Flanagan's unavailable, you know what? The guy that did the Maze Runner films, Wes Ball, he visually is so much fun, and his work with special effects is really interesting. He mostly does computer stuff, but I'd really love to see him tackle some practical effects and get down and dirty with that. So if Mike Flanagan produces and Wes directs and they get somebody cool to write a script, I would be really down for that. So nobody asked me that, but that's my answer for that.
Love it.
Well, we've had a long conversation, gentlemen. Maybe we'll split this into two parts. Maybe we'll let the quiz sort of be a standalone thing, and then we'll let the discussion be its own thing as well. But I had a tremendous amount of fun. I'm really glad to be doing these little episodes where there are no rules, there's no structure, it's just hanging out and talking shop. But I think it's probably time to start bringing things to a close. Let's just go around the horn real quick. Lanston, you have anything you want the audience to know about?
Final Boy Status, Season 3, coming, maybe not super soon, but soon enough.
I mean, I guess
theaters near you.
In theaters near you. It's the video form of this podcast. It's very grainy and pixelated on a giant screen. The sound mixing is terrible.
We have like different people dubbing the voice for some reason.
Yeah, Ian Grufford from Fantastic Four is apparently going to be dubbing my voice for season 3. I'm not sure how we landed that contract after you guys, renegotiated for such high salaries in season 3, but apparently we got him on contract.
Oh, found the money.
We did some creative accounting.
We're just paying you nothing, Luke. That's where we got the budget from.
Yeah. I didn't want to say it out loud, but yeah.
But yeah, that's how it is.
But, to keep the stars happy, sometimes other people got to take a pay cut.
It's true. It's very true.
But, yeah, Final Boy Status Season 3. I'm excited. We're not at the point where we're working on it yet, but we're rumblings. We're talking about it, and I'm excited.
It's coming.
Mr. Adam Bone, you have anything you want to shout out there into the world?
Nothing crazy is going on right now for me. Kind of like I said, anything I come up with creatively doesn't make it past day one. So next time I might have something, hopefully.
Oh, there's always something in the future. I know me. I'm always like working on something, and I'm like, I wonder if this will see the light of day. But something I'm definitely doing. Well, I mean, as always, you can follow me on social media. It's just at Luke Haueter, LukeHaueter. That on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all the good places. You can find me. I'm not hard to access. But in terms of stuff I have coming up, I know for sure that I don't know when we're going to release this, but on March 26th, I am heading back on over to our friend's channel, our friend Improv and D&D, and I'm going to be joining him for another game of D&D. So if you caught the last time I was over there, I played a half-orc barbarian named Trevor Eckel, and we sort of, at the end of it, joined forces and united as an adventuring party, and this next stream will be what happens after that, the continuing adventures of. So I'm excited to be playing again. It was a ton of fun last time, and I'm just really pleased, just chuffed that he invited me back. So I told you guys to be on the lookout, that I knew I'd be coming back, and I will be back on March 26th. So head on over to his channel to check that out. I think that's all I want to talk about at this time. But of course, we love hearing from you guys. You can send us emails at finalboystatus@gmail.com. You can leave comments. We're not hard to track down. Tell us your thoughts on reboots. What are movies you love that are reboots? What are movies you hate that are reboots? What do you think makes a good reboot? What do you think makes a bad reboot? We want to hear your opinions. We are not the end all be all on this. We are just starting the conversation. That will be the end of this episode. Thank you for hanging out with us. Have a pleasant rest of your day.